Angus Adams, Chapter 6, The Girl with the Great Left Kick. The rest of the school day was frustrating, to say the least. Angus struggled to concentrate through science and maths and was accused by Miss Kirkland of being away with the fairies. Then at first break, the other boys stuck to him like flies around horse poo, and he couldn't get a moment alone with Hamish. Finally, they agreed to Skype after soccer training. Fortunately, soccer training was cancelled because the coach had broken his toe. Unfortunately, Hamish's mum saw this as an opportunity for Hamish to do more piano practice rather than risk being unstimulated for 5 minutes. At home later, Angus thought he might as well help Dad with dinner. Chicken and veggie pie tonight. Uh-oh, said Dad, peering into the fridge. We're out of garlic. OMG, obviously short for oh my goodness, shrieked Birdie, the budgie, over the top of another old music group singing about living in the 70s. Despite everyone's best efforts, Birdie's vocabulary consisted exclusively of OMG and awesome. Could you shoot up to the shop for me, mate? Asked Dad. The shop wasn't far. About 500 metres from the end of their street, Angus was the only kid his age he knew who was allowed to walk to the shop by himself. His mum said in her day kids were allowed to free range, which she said meant play in the street, ride their bikes over to each other's houses, climb trees at the park and roll around in the mud if they felt like it. It wasn't called free range back then. It was just normal. And apparently nobody died from it. Well, hardly anybody. Angus was allowed to play in the street. The problem was there was no one else in the street to play with because all the other kids were at home in their backyards busy with structured, supervised activities. Sure, he had his brother to play with, but still, someone else would be nice too. The park was opposite the shop, and as Angus drew closer, he noticed that same girl once again by herself, kicking a soccer ball into a portable net. He paid for his garlic bulb, pocketed it, and crossed the road to the park and stood for a minute watching her. Using 2 soccer balls, she was having a shot at goal with each from about 20 metres out before going to collect the balls. She was good. It was only a small goal, and she really missed. "Hi," said Angus when she looked up. "Hi," said the girl and booted another goal, this time with her left foot. Impressive. "You're good," he said. The girl went to retrieve her balls from the goal without comment, probably already knew she was good. "I've seen you at school. You knew?" "Yep." She booted 2 more goals, first the right foot, then the left. "You play for a club?" he asked. "Used to in Sydney," she answered. At this point, the conversation stalled. Angus had run out of things to ask, and she wasn't exactly chatty. But then as she lined up another kick, she said, "I've seen you at school too." Of course. No wonder she didn't want to talk to him. His face got hot. "I didn't do it," he said before he could stop himself. The girl looked at him, her own face blank. Feeling stupid now, he turned and walked away. He was at the footpath when she called out, "Want to be goalie?" He turned around. They looked at each other. "Okay," he said finally, and then remembered the garlic. Pulling it out of his pocket, he said, "Just let me run this home. Back in a sec." She turned away. When he returned a couple of minutes later, leaping over one of the pine log balustrades that formed the park perimeter, she looked surprised. Didn't she think he'd come back? He went and stood in goal. Even though the width of the goal area was small, Angus found he had his work cut out for him. The balls came at him hard and fast, high, low, and everything in between, and she was accurate, amazingly so, especially with her left foot. He had never seen anything like it. After about 10 minutes, they swapped over, and Angus had a turn at goal kicking. He wasn't bad, but he was nowhere near as good as she was. They kept on taking turns for maybe half an hour. Later, he realised he'd been having so much fun he'd actually forgotten the terrible trouble he was in. For 30 minutes, there'd been nothing but the goal, the soccer balls, and the girl. Then she said she had to go home, and the rest of the world came rushing back in. He helped to pack up the goal and realised he didn't even know her name. She must have been thinking the same thing. "I'm Bodhi," she said, pinning him with that cool stare of hers. "I was named after the tree Buddha sat under to reach enlightenment." This was the longest sentence she'd uttered so far, and for a moment Angus wasn't sure how to respond to the unexpected information. Then he remembered that any normal person would offer their own name in return. "I'm Angus," he said. "I was named after the lead guitarist in AC/DC. Bodhi nodded. "That's cool." "Are you Buddhist?" asked Angus. "No," said Bodhi. "Can you play the guitar?" "Only on Xbox." They both grinned. That evening, after a delicious and very garlicky chicken pie, Angus was finally able to Skype Hamish and get down to the serious business of discussing how they might go about investigating Mr. Jackson as their chief suspect. Hamish reported he'd added Mr. Jackson to the list as the primary suspect and held it up to the camera so Angus could see it. Angus pointed out he was, in fact, the only suspect. Nevertheless, he agreed that with access to the entire school, he certainly ticked the box for opportunity. Motive was more of a problem. Why would he be stealing these things? Neither of them had any idea, but further agreed what they needed was to get another look into that box. Angus suggested a recon mission. A what? Asked Hamish. A recon mission, reconnaissance, checking things out, getting information. We should at least have a look through the workshop window and see if we can see the stuff or the box. Hamish thought it unlikely that Mr. Jackson would just leave the stuff lying around in full view. Got a better idea? Asked Angus. But Hamish had no ideas, better or otherwise. Angus was about to say goodbye when Hamish's face lit up. Hey, he said, I nearly forgot to tell you that Mum's taking me to the Ekka for my birthday next Saturday, and you're invited. Really? Great, said Angus, meaning it. That'll be awesome, thanks. Ryan's coming too, said Hamish. Mum says it'll do him good to have some fun. Cool. It took Angus a while to go to sleep that night. There was a lot to think about. He and Hamish had discovered Mr. Jackson may well be the school thief. He'd made a new friend, well, kind of, who apparently was also allowed to play at the park without adult supervision, and now he was getting to go to the Ekka with Hamish and Ryan. He should be feeling better, but he wasn't. Not really. It was just impossible to feel happy, truly happy about anything, while the stupid stealing business hung over his head. Eventually he fell asleep.